Well, hello there. So you should already know what it is by now. It's Vibes by Water TV. So listen, we're going to get into a movie talk. I'm not going to call it a review, but there is going to be spoilers. You've been warned. If you haven't seen the movie, look away right now. To be fair, if you haven't seen the movie, I don't know why you've even clicked on this. So we're going to be talking about Sinners, the latest movie produced, written, and directed by Ryan Coogler, starring Michael B. Jordan. And I mean, listen, if this weekend you haven't found a way to get down to the movie cinema and watch this film, I understand it's Easter and all of that, but if you haven't found a way to do that, then I don't know what you're doing. We are going to talk on this movie. This film is everything and more to what it's been portrayed as, how it's been marketed, as it's been hyped. This film is amazing. The dialogue, the storytelling, just the way it's been written, the shots, the cinematography, the effects, the characters. Just great, great, great work by Ryan Coogler. Michael B. Jordan plays twins. So he plays two twins, one called Smoke and the other called Stack. They return from Chicago and essentially go about trying to set up shop within their hometown, Mississippi. They recruit their younger cousin to essentially assist them in creating an event night. But yeah, it's a horror film. It's a periodic horror film, adventure, thriller, supernatural settings, if you know what I'm talking about. Um, I mean, where do I start? Now, the main thing I wanted to say, the main point that I feel like I took from the film was the music business, but just music in general, in the way that music is a form within the wider spectrum of entertainment that is seen to, of course, bring people together, brings community. It can bring people of different races, different cultures, and bring them all in harmony based on music. However, I do feel like it did do a great job in portraying the exploitation of musicians, particularly black musicians, or even entertainers as a whole, um, and how that is prevalent, of course, within America, but it's across the globe, and in the way that it takes place, in a way where musical talent at very early ages is seen, heard, experienced, and commodified for personal gain. And I feel like part of the idea of when Sammy, the preacher's son, is playing in the function, it is noted that Remick, or Jack O'Connell's character, can hear the music from miles away, from outside of the function. He could hear the voice, he could hear the music ship, or the musicianship, I should say, of Sammy. He could hear that from quay away. And I feel like it was almost an allegory of how usually, typically, white corporations, businessmen, whatever term you want to put on it, commodify, hear, and exploit that musicianship of black artists or entertainers from the get go. I feel like, of course, the idea of that community coming into the black community, or being pulled towards the black energy, or sorry, pulled towards the black community via the music. It's the music which is bringing them in. And I think there was even a scene where it was said that, you know, white people love the music, but they don't necessarily love the people who make the music. And I feel like just that line alone is something that I feel like ties the whole film in together, because it's demonstrative of how, you know, you want the talent, you want what can be commodified. You don't necessarily want the people or the humans behind it. You just want the voice. You just want the environment that the music creates, because that is gold. That is the money. That is the you know that is the commodity. But that is something that actually, in actuality, is not to be separated. It's one and the same. The people and the music is one and the same. You know, but I feel like overall that was a perfect um, overall analogy. I feel like that is an analogy overall for the entire film, but also the entertainment business as a whole and how it's exploited. And the fact that the supernatural beings are vampires, I feel like that's poignant as well, because they're vampires in the sense of they're leeches. You know, they want to bite into your neck. They want, you know what I mean. That's what vampires are. They want to suck your blood. They want to get to your blood. They want to get to your. Do you get it? They're trying to extract something from you, and I feel like that is something that is very significant to this overall theme, but also very significant to the film and culture at large. However, with that said, it's not. I don't believe it's solely a black and white thing, or a rich and poor thing necessarily, or anything like that. But that is definitely very, very important. But that's not the sole thing, because even in the same at the same token, when Stack first hears Sammy playing the guitar in the car and singing the blues, straight away he looks at him and he gives him the look of like, ooh, that's gold. That's money. That's, yeah, yeah, yeah. There's something there, and that's the same idea. It's not necessarily as sinister. It's not necessarily as covert or dangerous, if I can say that, in the same way as it takes place in other cultures necessarily, or with other cultures. But it's the same idea of like, oh, there's something there. There's something we can put that in a different environment, put that in a different setting, and we can reap off of that for personal gain. Which I'm not saying is inherently a bad thing, but it's the same idea. It's the same idea of we can exploit this. So I feel like that is definitely something that is a key point of this film. And the fact that the supernatural are vampires, if they are vampires, plays into that idea of exploitation of an analogy of trying to extract from the black community, trying to extract from the musicians for personal gain. That as well, I think, was a very key takeaway from the film. The juxtaposition between, of course, the haves and the have-nots within the Mississippi Delta. Um, you can obviously see it is a plantation. It's a plantation community. It's a plantation area where a lot of the African American people within that community still working on the plantations. That is mainly what the town has been associated for that specific demographic. But then you have the twins who have done fairly well for themselves, being quote unquote gangsters, but they're actually World War One veterans who have gone to Chicago and returned back to Mississippi in order to just set up shop and create, uh, if you like, an honest living for themselves. Um, their little cousin is an amazing musician, and in certain parts, you could argue that this film, I don't want to say it's a musical, but there's a lot of musical elements to it, especially as it gets into the middle portion of the film. And it kind of shows a nice, I don't know if nice is the right word, but it shows the dynamic between blues music and country music. I thought that is very, very well done. And there was a direct, maybe 10-minute segment where you can see that juxtaposition between blues music and the African American community, singing from a place of pain, which they've then translated to strength. And then it goes to a scene outside where the counterparts who the white counterparts are also singing music, but and performing music, but it's actually they're performing country music, and they try to use this as a method in order to create to create solidarity. But it's interesting where there's a conversational point where, at the point of when the white people start to play the music, you can clearly see that there's a certain rhythmic element that the black people don't necessarily connect to, and they shun them for that. And that is one of the things that gives them an inclination that maybe we shouldn't quite join forces right now. Maybe you can't step into this event. Maybe something is a little bit different. Your music is cool and what you're performing there is cool, and we know it may have origins from what we do, quote unquote. And that has another dynamic to it because they was right in believing that, but for the bigger, um, wider story, because those actual individuals, let's just call them what they are. Well, let's just call them what they were. They're supernatural, living dead, zombie style, vampire like beings who were trying to use it as an opportunity in order to get into the venue, because once they got that privilege of being able to be allowed into those doors, that's when they was able to actually devour, kill, recruit. I don't know what word you want to put on it, um, and do what they need to do. I'll leave it there. You need to watch the film. So I do feel like that was definitely very, very well done. That kind of direct contrast between the musical styles, if you like. Um, I feel like, of course, the race relations. It's a racist town, and of course, there's a segregated vibe. But there's a love interest, or there's a couple of love interests actually. So Smoke, who's one of the twin brothers, he is more of your cool, calm thinking, more a little bit, and then Stack gives the impression of he is a bit more impulsive. He's a little bit more, I don't want to say rash, but he's a little bit more quicker to pull the trigger, if you like. And that's the duality of the twin brothers. And they both have love interests. Um, Smoke's love interest has an understanding of magic and kind of the supernatural realm, which comes to be a very big part later in the film because she's able to help them fought off the threat that they're facing. The ones that made it out, anyways. I'll leave it there. And then Stack has a love interest, but his love interest is a, let's just call it a white passing woman who, yeah, let's just say she's a little bit, she's trying to get Stack's attention, and it seems like for a long periods of the film, Stack doesn't necessarily want to be seen with her. He's trying to get away from her. He's trying to create distance from her, but she keeps finding opportunities and finding ways to get close to Stack and be in his presence. It later then, as the story unfolds, becomes a situation where we begin to understand why he's been distancing from her. Um, but once again, I'll leave that to the film. I'm not going to get into that as well. But one thing that is important, she's asked a question, and she says she is a. Well, she said she has a half. She said she has a half black dad. Or she said her dad or her granddad was half black, something of that nature, and that's kind of what gives her that connection to the black community, if you like. And she doesn't want to be with a white man, even though I believe she may have been. She's married to a white guy. Um, but she's being pushed in that direction. But that's not necessarily the direction she wants to be in. But she's being shunned by the wider black community because, as I say, it's a segregated community. Race relations are rife. It's Mississippi in 1932, I believe. So yeah, very interesting. And in that moment of where supernatural beings, if you like, and then the attendees of the event face off, she has a major role to play. That's all I will say. Again. Sammy Moore, the preacher boy, he is a key component because he is amazing with the guitar, and he's a prospect in blues, and he has this amazing ability to play the guitar. But as well as that, he's just an amazing blues artist, singer. And his voice is essentially what attracts these supernatural beings because they could hear him from outside of the premises. They could hear the allure of the music because in a lot of, and at the very beginning of the movie they do allude to this, in a lot of folklore, mythology, maybe if you like, I'm not sure what term you want to put on it, there is an association with music being able to connect with ancestry, connect with supernatural forces in the spirit realm, being able to connect on that level. Um, that association of certain individuals being so musically inclined and so musically gifted from birth due to that connection to that realm, that spiritual realm via the music. These are ideas that are prevalent within certain cultures, with certain native Indian cultures, certain African and West African specifically cultures. In Ireland, there's also these types of ideas as well, and across the world there is these associations. So how the film then finds a way to actually bring out that kind of mythology or folk tale or tradition, or I'm not sure what the word is. Take out of all of those words, take the one that you believe fits best. But they take that and they bring it to life in the film. It's a great film. I feel like there's a lot of themes, as I say, from race relations to the clan to Christianity to music to musicology or musicality and the origins of music and the connection to the spirit world of music. But yeah, I thought that it was a very good film. I do recommend everyone can watch it, all races, but especially if you are if you're especially if you're black. I believe that this is definitely a very good movie that a lot can be gained from. It's entertaining. Of course, there was previously these notions that black films don't sell, or black people can only make a certain type of film, you know. But this is more living proof, and there's been many in the past. You know, not only are great for the cinema and for the masses, but also are telling very important stories and very important connective stories that still are authentic in a big production way, and they've done to be great in the cinema. They still tell important stories that hold a lot of weight to black people, which I feel like is very important. So yeah, I'll say if you haven't had the opportunity, go and watch it, and make sure you stay after the credits. That first batch of credits, make sure you stay after because there is another scene that lasts maybe about 5 to 10 minutes. So yeah, stick around. Don't run out of the cinema too early. Yeah, Vibe by Water TV.